January 20th, 1942. A slick black car cuts through the heavy snow, blanketing the streets of southwest Berlin. Inside is Martin Luther, the Undersecretary of Nazi Germany's Foreign Office. Luther has had his hand full over the last couple of years. Germany is 2 years deep into an all-out war across Europe. The January cold has set in. The troops in the east are freezing. No one's told him exactly what this meeting is about, but he knows it's important. The car pulls up to a beautiful, lavish estate. Luther steps out. A cold wind bites at his skin. The soldier salutes, then leads him inside the villa to the conference room. Seated at the table are some of the highest officials of the Nazi party. They're drinking cognac, enjoying some fresh caviar, and cracking a few jokes. Reinhard Heydrich, the man who called the meeting, gestures for Martin Luther to take his seat. It's in this room, surrounded by laughter and merriment, that 15 men planned the extermination of over 6 million Jews. The room is full of representatives from each of the agencies of the state. Some of these men hold very high position in the Nazi regime. State Secretary Ronald Frazier from the Department of Justice, Dr. Kritzinger from the Chancellery, and Dr. Stuckart from the Ministry of the Interior. Luther from the Foreign Office is a junior member in comparison. Heydrich opens up the meeting by laying out the full details of the Jewish question. Simply put, the newly conquered territories are full of too many Jews. The regime has already pushed 500,000 Jews out of the Reich, but it won't be able to keep up. Luther looks down at the folder of the documents in front of him, put together by the man who has helped Heydrich orchestrate this conference, Adolf Eichmann, the head of Department for Jewish Affairs. They list the countries of Europe and how many Jews each one currently has. Some have only a few. Estonia, for example, is Jew-free after a Nazi takeover. Occupied Poland, on the other hand, has well over 2 million, and USSR has over 5 million. Among the documents is a copy of a letter sent by Hermann Göring, Hitler's second-in-command, authorizing Heydrich to plan a final and thorough solution to a Jewish question. Heydrich is the perfect man for a job. Cold, ruthless, and efficient. Hitler calls him the man with the iron heart. He and Eichmann are fierce anti-Semitists and followers of the Nazis' race-based ideology. The first question to answer is simple. Who actually qualifies as a Jew? Who has a place in the future Reich and who doesn't? 6 years ago, the Nazis put in place the Nuremberg laws. Nuremberg defined 3 categories of people: full-blooded Germans, Jews, and Mischlings, half-bloods. Mischling could be of the first or a second degree. First-degree Mischling have 2 Jewish grandparents, while the second-degree Mischlings have only 1. Anything more is considered a full Jew. Heydrich uses Nuremberg to argue the first-degree Mischling are to be considered full Jews for the solution. Only first-degree Mischling who have married a full-blooded German, or those given a special exemption, will be allowed to stay. The first-degree Mischling who have been allowed to remain in the Reich by special exemption will be sterilized to preserve Germany's genetic future. Second-degree Mischling will be treated as Germans, except in these special cases. If they were born out of wedlocks from 2 half-bloods, they look particularly Jewish, they hold beliefs and political alignments that are Jewish in nature. These exceptions are to be disregarded if the Mischling is married to a full-blooded German. Luther looks up from his notes. While Heydrich speaks, he notices Eichmann eyeing the stenographer. He shakes his head from time to time, signaling to the secretary that what was just said should be removed from the transcript. Nobody but the highest-ranking officials know that this meeting is taking place, and Heydrich is choosing his words carefully. It's right there and then that Martin Luther understands the exact implications of what's being discussed. and why the Wannsee Conference must remain a tightly kept secret, Luther turns to the next page of his folder. The document is titled Evacuation. The Nazis have never made their anti-Semitism a secret. Since taking power in 1933, the Nazi government has restricted the rights of German Jews in nearly every department. Hitler has made it clear that he wishes to see a Germany free of Jewish influence, both in the ideological and physical sense. The policy the Nazis have been following up to this point has been emigration. The plan is simple: make life miserable for Jews, then deport them to other countries so they can deal with them instead. But immigration has its flaws. Moving hundreds of thousands of people across borders drains the Germany treasury, and many of the host countries are refusing to take any more refugees, including the United States and Great Britain. Not only that, the war is looking like it will go on longer than expected. Hitler planned to deal with the Jewish problem after a swift victory over Europe. With the army stalling in the east and the Americans having joined the war after Pearl Harbor, the Germans need a solution now. Heydrich boldly states that the policy of immigration is over. Evacuation shall take its place instead. Luther is confused. As he reads the document before him, he sees that the Jews are no longer being pushed out of the Reich's territories, but are instead being sent to the east, to occupied Poland, in 4 notable labor camps: Belzec, Treblinka, Sobibor, and Auschwitz. But this doesn't make sense. What good would shipping the Jews to the east, where they are already overcrowded, do for the Jewish problem in the Reich territories? The cost of transporting the Jews to the east comes to around 445 million euros in today's money, and that's a conservative estimate. Luther isn't the only one asking himself this question. A few of the others at the meeting, especially those overseeing the general government that controls the territories of occupied Poland, raise the point. There's a brief silence. Luther spots Eichmann glance at the stenographer once again. Heydrich repeats firmly and clearly that the government will come through Europe, west to east, evacuating the Jews in Mischling, as defined early, to the east. Many Jews put to work will drop out through natural reduction. The others, as Heydrich puts it, will have to be seen to as they are represent of resistant germ cell, of Jewish revival. That's when a penny drops. Luther, and near everyone else at the table, suddenly realizes exactly what's meant by the term evacuation. He understands why Heydrich has been so careful with his words, why Eichmann has been monitoring the stenographer so closely. Luther realizes why this entire conference is such a close-kept secret. When Heydrich says evacuation, he means extermination. This policy has been the plan since before Luther even stepped through the villa's front door. Heydrich, on the orders of his superiors like Goering and Hitler, has been tasked with making the evacuation plan a reality by getting all the other departments of the state on board with the vision. Not even Nazis, as anti-Semitic as they are, want a clear record that they directly ordered the slaughter of what they hope will be 11 million people. That's why the language used in the Wannsee Conference is so vague and unclear, and it's why the transcript will be carefully edited by Eichmann himself to make sure not even a hint of blame can be thrown back at the higher-ups should they ever get out to the public. The Nazis are well versed in giving criminal orders in subtle ways. Heydrich himself participated in 1938 Night of the Long Knives, which saw many Jewish homes and places of worship destroyed by riots. At no point was an order expressly given, but Heydrich railed the people to carry out his will all the same. The same is taking place here, just at a much larger scale. Heydrich looks around the room. He asks if there are any objections to the idea of evacuation. One by one, the men at the table shake their heads, whether pressed to do so through fear or genuinely excited by the plan. Each one of the people invited to the Wannsee Conference agrees that this final solution is the right path forward. When Heydrich and Eichmann turns to Luther, a chill runs down his spine. Luther shakes his head. The fate of 6.6 million Jews just has been sealed. question on everyone's mind inside the Wannsee Conference room isn't about the ethical consequences of such a task, or how history will judge them if the secret ever gets out. It's purely logistics. Killing 11 million people is far from a straightforward process. Luther and the others at the table begin asking questions. How will they afford it? Where will the killings be done? With what methods? How do they convince the Germans to go through with murdering innocent men, women, and children? Heydrich goes through each point one by one with his trademark clinical efficiency. The most obvious hurdle is the method. The Nazis have already conducted mass killing of Jews in Poland and other territories, but they were far from efficient. Soldiers would line the victims up, take aim, and shoot. Then they'll push the bodies into crude mass graves, dug up in the countryside. This costs hundreds of thousands in bullets, needed for the war, and takes up too much time for Heydrich's liking. Not only that, only the most gung-ho soldier feels comfortable executing a defenseless civilian. Shooting is off the table. Heydrich and Eichmann put forward a more efficient solution: gas. Back in 1940, the Nazis carried out the T4 project, where they would euthanize the sick, the mentally ill, and others considered unfit for the life in the Reich. Vans carrying condensed carbon monoxide pumped from the exhausts into the van's interior proved deadly and cheap during the project. Luther and the others still aren't convinced. The T4 project was designed to kill thousands. Vans won't do for killing millions. Once again, Heydrich is a step ahead. He and Eichmann explain how they plan to establish permanent, round-the-clock systems at the existing camps to make evacuation the inhabitants easier. Gas chambers disguised as showers. Prisoners enter. The guards press the button. Only corpses are left. Then they are cremated, leaving nothing but ash and smoke behind. Once the camps are set up with the proper infrastructure, Heydrich believes if everything runs smoothly, they can evacuate up to 60,000 Jews every day. 60,000 lives snuffed out every 24 hours, from dawn to dusk. A generation lost, non-stop, until the entire continent is free of Jews. The gas vans used for T4 project, for reference, only killed around 50 to 100 per hour. But nobody objects to the plan. Nobody stands up and opposes the industrialized, systematic slaughter of the entire people. They just discuss the details like they are businessmen crunching the numbers at the board meeting. Luther is no different. He's just as excited by the plan as Heydrich. To him, 11 million Jewish souls are nothing more than an accounting error to be rectified. Everyone at the table gives the express approval for Heydrich's plan, and the Wannsee Conference officially comes to an end. Eichmann hands Luther and the others a copy of the transcript. Memorize this, he tells them. Then burn the copy. Nobody can know what we discussed here today. Of the 11 million Jews on Eichmann's list, 1.2 million will be killed in Nazi death camps over the course of 1942 alone. All because of this one secret meeting held in the lavish halls of the Wannsee Villa. After a few years, Berlin lies in ruins. The 1,000-year Nazi Reich is, after just a few years, nothing but smoke and rubble. 60 million have died over the course of the Second World War. 6.26 million Jews have been killed in the Holocaust. Many of those who attended the Wannsee Conference are dead. Heydrich died from an infected wound from a Czech assassin's bullet just a few months later. Martin Luther was thrown into a concentration camp in 1943 by his superiors, before dying 2 years later. Those still alive have either escaped or are on a trial in Nuremberg. They all deny their involvement in the Holocaust. If no direct proof is found of the conference, they might just avoid justice. Allied investigators are sifting through what's left of the German Foreign Office, hoping to find anything they can use in the trial. But all the attendees of the Wannsee Conference burned the copies of the transcript as instructed. All, save for one. One man's carelessness would be the only trace of the Wannsee Conference and the dark plans hatched there. An investigator pulls out an old folder from among the mess of scattered documents. The date reads 20th January 1942. The name Martin Luther is written on the front. He opens it up and begins to read.